Alright, so good morning and welcome back to the observatory. It's another overcast cloudy day here in Cyprus. So it's time to get some more things done inside the observatory. I haven't had any opportunity to do any astrophotography. It did break the other night, a couple of nights ago, and I came out and set up the rigs, or set up the Rasa, and unfortunately the clouds rolled in about an hour later, so I really didn't get anything done on there, but it did give me the opportunity to check some of the profile settings in ENA and things and test the equipment, which was all good. Alright, so back to today. So since the last update, which was installing the mini PCs in the observatory, I have made some further changes. So the first thing was, I did mention in that video that I had issues with the observatory rig dropping connection on the GPS module and the focuser, which obviously go in through the aux ports on the CGX-L mount. And the problem there turned out to be the USB cable length, so it looks like I got lucky with the previous laptops and didn't see any issues there. However, the mini PCs didn't like the length of that cable, and it was dropping the connections. So I did manage to get hold of a new active USB cable, 5 meters long, from one of the local stores here in Cyprus, and I got that installed yesterday, and or the day before I should say, and everything is working all good now. So the other thing that I mentioned was, while using the ATEM Mini, if I'm doing streaming and that in the observatory, when I was setting it up inside the house in the office there, I did really start to like the multiview feature of the ATEM, and so I did decide to get another small, cheap, full HD monitor that I could use inside the observatory, and allow me to see the multi-view output of what was going on all the mini PC screens and what was getting pushed out onto the live stream. So we'll see that in a second. And then the other thing I did was I got myself a 4-port keyboard video mouse switcher. So what I've done is I've taken one output from the mini PC's HDMI port into the ATEM Mini, as we'd set up in the office. And then I've taken the second HDMI output from the mini PC and I've put it into the KVM switch, and then in Windows configuration for the display settings I've duplicated the displays onto both HDMI ports, so that if I'm not using the ATEM I've still got a display output on the mini PC, or if I am using both the streaming through the ATEM and I'm looking through the KVM switch, both outputs are displaying the same thing, which is just ideal. So let's take a look at what we've done. So here on the desk, the ATEM Mini as before, set up with the mini PC's numbers 1, 2 and 3 going into the inputs 1, 2 and 3. Then the laptop, which I use for pulling in the webcam feed and overlaying it on the displays capture from the mini PCs and pushing the output of the HDMI port from the laptop into the channel number 4 on the ATEM. And then I've taken the second, as I say, HDMI port out to this new KVM. So numbers 1, 2 and 3 are the mini PCs, and then number 4 is the output from the ATEM. And then I've put it down onto this new full HD display here. So here we can see we're on the ATEM multi-view display, so when I'm sitting at my laptop I can keep an eye on what's going on the various PCs and on what's going on out to the stream. And then I've also, as I said, I've switched the mini PC, so if I go on to the KVM switch and select number 1, which is the mini PC that's currently on, we'll see the display changes to the directly from the mini PC, and I can then just plug in my wired keyboard and mouse, or I can get a wired one and plug it into there, and I've got direct access into the mini PC without having to worry about the ATEM or remote desktoping in through the laptop. So that's all great there. So if I switch it back to the multi-view, Yeah, we can see we've got mini PCs currently selected as program, and the laptop's currently selected as preview. That's why that's black and that's black, but we've got the green border around here, and then what's going out to the program. So if I go on to mini PC, onto the ATEM, mini PC's live, the preview is the laptop, and if I switch an auto switch, you can see they've changed the program outputs. The green and the reds have changed, and now the program is the output from the laptop, which is not currently switched on. So if I flick it back, now we can see everything back to normal. And then I've put this on a swivel arm display, so display mount, so there we can see. So when I'm not using the display, to stop it getting damaged, I can just swivel it around, rotate it around, and park it under that bay of the observatory, and everything is good. Alright, so while the weather's still not the best for astrophotography or during the day, it's time to get on to the next mod of the observatory, which is flooring. So I'd mentioned in one of the early observatory builds that I had a temporary liner down, which was an old swimming pool liner on the central part of the observatory, just to help keep the dust from the open decking underneath. And I've now got my hands on. I've been waiting for these to come into stock in Cyprus for a long time. I've got the high density foam flooring, interlocking panels. So these are the 60 centimetre square interlocking panels that I'm going to build into the observatory and cut into all the bays. So I've got a pile of them. I think I've got 28 of them, so that's probably more than enough. It was a bit hard to work out how many I'm going to need, obviously, with having to cut everything into the bays, but we'll see how that goes. And then what I'm also going to do to help minimise the dust, as you maybe noticed when we were setting up the mini PCs, was that this black, I've got heavy duty black duct tape that I've pushed into the corners just to minimise all the dust and everything, and hold the panels back and stop coming in from the outside world and bringing all the dust into the bays and onto all the equipment and things. So I'm going to take everything out of the observatory, all my racks, all my panel boxes and all my spare equipment, my chair, the cooling fan for the summer, and dump that all outside and hope it doesn't rain, and then get on to some floor laying. So what I hope we want to do, so this is some temporary old foam sheeting that came with some of the equipment, is I'll cut all the panels so that they lie over the top of the sills of the bays, and just seal everything in. And then in the summer, once the weather improves, I'll give the outside of the observatory a deep clean and get all the winter scum and dust off it, and probably squeeze some silicone into all the joints just to further seal everything up and just try and keep as much dust out of here as possible. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is go and start emptying the observatory, and yeah, see how this goes. Alright, so that's everything now off the floor of the observatory, and certainly sounds a bit more echoey in here now, but yeah, we've got everything off the floor, apart from obviously the stuff I can't move. Lifted all the temporary foam, lifted all the spare shelving that was sitting on the deck just to close up these holes. So what I'm going to do now is give everything a quick hoover, clean up the edges of all the panels of the bays, and put the duct tape up there to seal everything up. And then I'm going to trim down the temporary swimming pool liner just so it's square across all the bays, and then we'll get on to doing the main floor. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, so here you can see an example of one of the issues we face with the next dome panels. So it's obviously bolted at the top of the bottom onto the bay wall, and you can see the gap of the light coming in there. So when the wind blows, this sits and vibrates, and all the dirt and dust come in through the edges here and then coat all the walls. So I've just wiped down that wall there with a cloth, and you can see how much rubbish has come off of it. So I'm just using some of this, you know, kitchen spray, just giving everything a wipe down, and we'll get all the bays clean again before I tape up all the joints and get all the rubbish out of there. So it's going to take a little bit of time just to get everything spotless, but these things need to be done. So I'll just keep going with that. Alright, so I've started to put down some of the flooring. So as we can see, the first thing I did was I've left the middle square out because I need to cut obviously a circle around the pier. But I've placed out the main grid in the centre of the dome, and then put some of the edge tiles in place just to try and work out the balance to see where all the cuts and things would be, so I don't end up with any weird slivers that I need to try and fill in. So I'm pretty happy how it's sitting at the moment, and I think it's a case so now I'm just going to work from an edge in and start cutting everything down, because obviously I want to try and use the dome's walls to compress and push in the panels, the floor panels, and keep everything tight. And then once I'm happy with everything, then I'll have to try and work out the cut for the centre piece. So that's where we are at the moment, and the clouds are starting to thicken, so I hope it's not going to be raining in a few hours, but I need to crack on and get this done. So we'll catch you shortly. Alright, so after a bit of a mad panic this afternoon as it got cloudier and cloudier and darker, I thought it was going to rain, so I had to press on and try and get everything done as quickly as possible. But I can't believe how frustrating some of the cuts were to get the foam tiles into the various angles and corners and things like that with all the different segments. But we got there in the end, so the whole floor is done, all the bays are done, and cut round the pier. So it's dark outside now, so that's why we're in the observatory with the strip lights on. So as we can see down into the bay, so this is the bay underneath the laptop desk, and then obviously in the power bay I managed to cut around all the cables and get everything neat in there. There's still a few AC power cables just temporarily laid on the floor. This white one is for the small webcam that sits at the back of the Rasa for monitoring where it's looking, but I'm going to change that to a DC supply at some point, so I didn't want to go and run this under the floor. But all the other USB cables that go to the Rasa dome, or the Rasa mount, are under the floor and running up the sides. And then I've cut round obviously the pier base, so there's no contact with the pier, and I left the original what do you call it, swimming pool liner. I just cut it to the central area of the dome, and because I was quite happy with how it was sealing up the gap with all the fingers that are cut into it, so it doesn't put pressure on the dome and allows the cables and things to come up. So yeah, everything's all given a clean and put back in, and I'm quite pleased with how it's come out. So in the end, I'm left with 11 of these 60 by 60 foam tiles. So that means I used 21 in total for doing the floor. So that's for the whole observatory, including all the bays. So I'll probably use these, I'll cut these and put them on top of the spare metal shelving and everything, just to get rid of the metal surface and make things a little bit tidier. Or I'll maybe insulate some of the bays, maybe the one where I sit. I'll maybe put some insulation around the bay there, just to maybe deaden some of the sound and things like that. So that's it, the end of another project. A quick update there on the streaming setup and the changes there in the last couple of days, and obviously installing all the flooring and getting everything back in place. So if any questions or comments, don't forget to drop them below the video, and thank you very much for watching, and I wish you clear skies. I hope to get some soon as well myself, but it's not looking too great on the forecast. And yeah, we'll catch you sometime in the near future, hopefully. So take care everyone, and we'll see you again. Thanks for watching.